Yeah, I don't understand these people who are like enjoying things that aren't enjoyable. I don't get
I get
it.
that with cigars.
I think
Cigars
they're
are
pretend. Okay, well that's a little different. That's a little different to me. But with alcohol, it's like, okay, this is a drug. Use it like a fucking drug. And with smoking weed, like we were talking about the distillate, that like super pure stuff, that concentrate. And the one guy in the hangout was like, "Oh, you don't want that. It doesn't taste like anything. It just gets you really high." And I'm like, "Tell me more." Like that sounds perfect to me. These guys are like, "Oh no, you want this live resin. It's got all these notes."
Okay, that's bullshit. I'm totally on your page on the pot thing. Just use whatever's getting you high. Yeah, you don't need fucking
like I don't want to smoke a joint and like stink the room up. I want to hit a dab that's so fucking big that like the guy in the next room gets high, and I want to be stoned as fuck right fucking now. Like I don't want to like puff on a joint or, I mean I like smoking flower I guess, but like even when I smoke flower I don't fuck around about it. Like I'm gonna get a big ass water bong and we're gonna do like a gram at a time.
That's too much.
No, it's not. It's not enough.
It is. It was scary in Colorado with you because you'd always want to smoke those things, and they'd be like, "Hey, you want to like take a couple hits off a joint?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's like a preview to getting high." And it's like,
they'd be like, "Hey, would you like to smell my beer before we go drink some alcohol?" Yeah, sure. Smells awful. I don't know why you would ever want any part. All right, now can we go get drunk? Like that. That's what smoking a joint before we actually get high is like. Like a joint is just like. A joint doesn't get you fucking high. Not if you smoke weed.
They have the ones at like dispensaries that are coated and stuff.
Oh, those are different.
I've never tried one, but they're like $30.
Oh, you've never tried one? We should have bought some when we were in Colorado. No, those are my favorite, honestly. I like those a lot because they do get you high for one thing, and they're very expensive and they're fancy. It's like these pre-rolled. Usually, it's 1 gram of marijuana in this really nice joint. There's some gold. There's some that are wrapped in gold leaf, but that's just throwing money away. There's no reason to get a gold one. Yeah, just use regular rolling papers. But they usually put keef in there, or they'll take concentrate and like wrap it around the outside in a spirally pattern or something like that. So you're getting a lot of concentrate while you're smoking a joint. And they always use like top shelf, really strong weed as well.
Yeah, and you're 120 days away.
120, something like that. Yeah,
4 months.
4 months. 4 months. Happy town.
By Halloween, you'll be home free.
Oh, long before Halloween. It's October 2nd.
I was just thinking whatever the first fun holiday was.
October 2nd.
Oh, that's when you got out. August must have been when you got in.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been so long since you went in and got out of prison. Those 8 weeks, those 8 shows, I mean, that just flew by for Woody and I.
It seems like 8 years or something like that. It's what it feels like. 8-10 years ago.
What killed me was how long it took to go to prison. Like,
it took so long to go to prison.
So long. Like,
when was the arrest? 17?
Whether you were going to be locked up for 30 years or not at all was a question that existed for like 4 years or something outrageous like that. Yeah. And then after we knew, there was still how long between your sentencing date and your first day in prison?
Months.
Yeah. Kyle, think of the pressure that as your sentence was hanging over me. Like how rough that must have been on me.
There was months, and I remember like when right after I got arrested, and I was speaking to my legal team, and they were like, "Oh yeah, oh no, it wasn't them. It was one of the investigators, one of the sheriff's department investigators," and I was like. I know his name, but I asked him, I was like, "Hey, Bill, how long before we're going to have all this wrapped up?" He's like, "Oh, Kyle, I know some folks with cases like this, and 2-3 years before they even get to court, and then another year after that before everything's wrapped up, and who even knows?" And I'm just like, bullshit. There's no way this thing is going to last for 2 or 3 years. I'm like, we'll have this figured out by the spring.
Sure.
By the spring. Can I jump in line?
and by the spring, we had beaten the state case, but then the federal case began, and then it was the fall before it went anywhere, and then it's lasted so long. That was
the boss mode, the federal case.
Yeah, years and years this thing has stretched on. It was better to go federal though because Georgia treats concentrate like it's crack cocaine.
Oh, I didn't know that. I always thought it
Yeah.
was worse. Oh, so if you had gone to jail, it would have been worse.
It's a little of this, a little of that, right? Because first of all, like the state case wasn't going to go anywhere because they had written that bad search warrant. But
you did have shorts on.
I did have shorts on. But at the same time, if I did have to like if it was found guilty of the state charges and it was state, it was a real problem. But like they treat concentrate so seriously in the state of Georgia. It's like very similar to how powdered cocaine and crack cocaine are prosecuted so differently. Marijuana concentrate and marijuana are prosecuted very differently in Georgia. My lawyer told me he's like, I told him I was like, I thought having half an ounce was like I was skirting under some sort of legal guideline. He's like, oh no, not with concentrate. You might as well have had 10, 20 pounds of weed. Like that would have been better. If you'd had 10, 20 pounds of weed, we'd have a good shot here. But you had 14 grams of concentrate. They look at that like you might as well have killed somebody or like kidnapped some children or anything really. I was like, are you kidding? He's like, well, I'm exaggerating a little, but you're fucked. I'm like, well, you got to get me out of this. Well, we're going to try. Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. They treated the concentrate very seriously in Georgia. But when it went federal, they're like, marijuana is marijuana is marijuana. They don't care if it's a big pie you bake, a big cake you baked. Or,
what did they call the guns? Was it defaced? It was destructed serial numbers.
Yeah,
the phrasing was terrible.
Yeah, the phrasing was terrible. It always is. Defaced, maybe. So there's this federal law about defacing or altering serial numbers on firearms, and one of my guns had been Cerakoted, which is a fancy word for like professionally painted by a third-party company. And when they did it, like two of the serial numbers now were hard to read. But if you like scratched them hard enough with your fingernail, you could read them again. Like nothing was being hidden. But they were using that as this like modifier. It was like when you're playing Magic the Gathering and you like slap down an enchantment, like add 10 years. they were adding the 10-year enchantment onto my sentence because of that. That was 10 years potentially if we lose. And then there was a couple other little things like that. Each gun was an enhancement of like 2 years or 3 years up to 10 guns, very much like a Magic the Gathering hand, actually, now that I think about it.
It makes sense, just not in the context of you.
Of course.
Like, if a guy's distributing marijuana and he has a bunch of guns around, then we might assume he's a kind of violent marijuana distributor, and that, each of these guns kind of implies more of an arsenal ready to go to war, protecting. This is the Wire, scene where the cops come in gang. And it's practically Waco in there when there's shots going back. Like, that's what the law is for. But it just happens that they hit a YouTube gun channel who enjoys pot on the side.
Like you said, it's for like gangsters who are using those guns to enforce their territory where they're selling narcotics. Whereas I've never sold weed in my life. Nobody would ever pay me as much as I thought weed was worth. If that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't buy weed from me. I buy the weed. Like you set the price and I'll pay it. Like there was never a point where anybody was ever. I was like, hey, how much for an eighth of an ounce? And they were like, it's pretty expensive, man. I'm down to this is good stuff, and I only have a little bit left, and this is my supply. I'm like, just give me your fucking number, dude. Don't dance around this. I got places to be. 200 for an eighth. All right, fucking let's go. Like there's no that never happened where somebody told me a price that was too high. So there would be no circumstance where I would ever like sell weed, because no one would ever pay me as much as I thought weed is worth, because it's worth so much to me.
Was the serial number thing never a real threat? So
it was like a mild threat, right? Because like my lawyer's ATF guy was like, you would probably win this, and I would strongly recommend you fight this, no matter what, because this is nonsense. But it's still like, it's like when two fighters go into the ring, right? Like, oh,
anything could happen.
yeah, Tyson's going to fight this guy from the crowd. Well, would you bet your life that Tyson's going to win? Like maybe this guy, maybe it's a tough guy in the crowd. Maybe the judges really hate Tyson tonight. You know,
maybe
you
Tyson's
really
so sure he wins, we don't get his A game. Like, who the hell knows, how it goes down?
Yeah, you don't know who the judge is going to be, what his thoughts on the matter are going to be, if he's going to understand all the moving parts.
I think most people know but Cerakoting is like a very nice paint. It's not paint, but work with me. And Kyle had a gun painted, and I guess it made it difficult to read the serial number. And they treated him as if he had filed it off. And
that's like a felony thing, is filing off serial numbers for firearms is like
it's a super big deal. Yeah.
And plus, like,
I want to add
even less sense. It made even less sense in my case because I had a license that allowed me to re-serialize firearms. So, like, let's say I did have a firearm whose serial number I wanted to like get rid of. I could absolutely do that. I could literally file that serial number off, carve my new serial number on there in a very haphazard fashion, mind you. I could take like a Dremel and write like Kyle 123, and then I could open my book up and write Smith & Wesson AR-15 serial number Kyle 123, and that's all it takes. That's legal. That's legally changing the serial number of a firearm, and I had that license and that ability and all that stuff. So the idea that I would deface a serial number was doubly
stupid.
Nonsensical.
Yeah. And just to be clear, what he did do, he bought a brand new gun from a gun store like a normal person, and then had it professionally like painted, we'll say.
Yeah.
It wasn't shady at all. So, hey, new topic.
No. Yeah.
I wonder, real quick on that, I wonder if you would have gotten convicted of that. I wonder if you could have sued the people civilly that did the paint on the gun.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting thought. I considered it at the time. Yeah.